for, someone who's going to think about it too deeply, overthink it, a normal day is just, ugh. I mean, and I hate to be that guy, but apart from Jesus, I would be that guy. Whatever. So we're all die in a minute anyway. What does it make? Ecclesiastes.
Yeah, Ecclesiastes.
This has got to be your jam. You've been here for a while, right?
Well, yeah, somewhat. I've always appreciated Ecclesiastes mostly because, sometimes when you hit scripture and you're like, I can remember reading that, and you feel like, okay, I've already learned that lesson, or at least I know about that lesson, if you will. But Ecclesiastes, there's so many times where I'm like, yeah, I got it. I got the message of Ecclesiastes, and I'm like, well, maybe I don't. Am I really sure? So there's a lot of back and forth for me, because even in him, to me, it seems like it's Solomon, most likely Solomon, and at least, the wisdom that came from him, even if somebody else compiled it and stuff. But, you got to think he's going back and forth a lot, because on the one hand, he's like, yeah, everything's meaningless. Everything is vanity. It's all vapor. It's all mist is the translation. And yet we see the toiling that we put so much energy and so much effort into all this. He talks about the sun rising and then it hastens or it pants, back. It's kind of like this out of breath type of thing to go back and just start its cycle again. And we tend to do the same thing. And so on the one hand, he's like, well, let's just eat, drink, and be merry. But then he's also like, but without God, there's no meaning whatsoever. Yeah, so right. Even if you eat, drink, and be merry,
still meaningless.
It's still meaningless. And so it's those types of things where you feel like you got it, but then it's like, oh man, it just slipped away.
I feel like that's unfortunately that is the whole message.
Yeah.
I mean, just the whole book. That's the message. It's with God, without God, with God, without God. And it's so. Unfortunately, for me to commentate at all, I'll have to share my whole sermon. Which is, I hate to, give it to.
So you really do just need to walk out right now.
I should, walk out right
but
now.
I mean, we could also, this can come after the sermon. So there you go.
Well,
publishing.
I would say just from a deeper perspective that Solomon, all wise, right? I mean, as far as people goes, there was nobody wiser than him, with the exception of Jesus. He was the one. And there's a reality that when you think deeply about life in general, it loses its attraction. There's a degree of joy in simplicity. For kids,
ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, that's right. For kids, they're running around. They're not thinking about, one day I'm going to die and leave all this.
Yeah.
But when you get to a certain stage in life, you become more aware, I guess. And for some people, I think they're deeper thinkers than others. Some people kind of live more on the surface and ride happily along. But it's tough once you start thinking too deeply about it. It's like, really ain't a lot of meaning in all this.
Yeah.
And so that's why I appreciate this book as much as any I've read, because I've been there, on occasion where I'm like, this is just a waste of time. And not just me driving down the road, but every aspect of it, where I'm going and what I'm doing, and my whole day is like, what is this really about? And so I've been guilty of thinking about life from those perspectives, and I get to Ecclesiastes and realize, you know what? That's 100% true. Life is just worthless except for Christ. And so it's not just that he redeems our soul, he redeems our lives here, our time here. And so apart from him, there is no redemption. It is all wasted. There's no good coming from it. It doesn't last. But with him, it's none wasted. Everything that's done for him is, that's valuable. And so we'll get to it Sunday, but the reality is that Jesus said, if you give a cup of cold water in my name, you will not lose your reward. And so you think, well, that's otherwise that's a nothing act. I mean, just a nothing act. And yet when we do it for him, it becomes a something. And so that's what Jesus does. And we see it through Ecclesiastes. He takes what would be nothing and turns it into a something. So when we interject God, boy, it gets exciting then. There's meaning behind it, and there's purpose to it, and there's lasting effect from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. I kind of read it not through a necessarily different lens, but I put on a cloak to be able to read this through. And that cloak was basically based on the first, couple words here, futile, or the Hebrew word is hebel. I can't remember how to really say it. I'm not a Hebrew man. But anyway, it means that vapor, smoke. And so, when you think about what is smoke, it's thick. You can't necessarily see through it, but you can kind of see through it. It looks like you could grab it, but when you go to grab it, it dissipates. And so you got this kind of just chaotic mess of vapor in the air, and you try to make sense of it, but you can't really make sense of it. And so that's what I kind of realized, that, the teacher here, who we fully believe is Solomon, because he basically says it. He's like, life is so chaotic and we try to make sense of it and we can't make sense of it. And he goes through all the things. Here's how nature works. We don't know why it works like this, but it does. And this is how it ends, and it's always been like this. It'll continue to be like this. No one will remember it. Yep. I've tried to be the wisest man, and I've realized that wisdom is not even enough. And so like just all this chaos that he's feeling in life, people, why do fools, live long lives, and why do the good, live short lives? This doesn't make sense. He goes into like the times of everything. Only God really knows how these times work. We can't make sense of this, and we don't know why. So he's basically like, everything is smoke. And if we try to make sense of it with our own observation, and he says that a lot, this is what I've seen, then it's not going to make sense. And it's going to feel like, we might as well not even try. But I think that's why that, chapter 12, the last few verses there are so important, because what would it be without the enjoyment of God and fearing him and living in his commandments? So yeah, that's kind of the lens that I took.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's been interesting this time around and that's been hitting me is that all this toiling, he says it multiple times, that this is a gift from God. This is God's gift to man, especially right after that time for everything type of thing. And he's made everything beautiful in its time, and he's put eternity into man's heart in chapter 3, verse 11. Skip on down to 12, and he says, I perceive that there's nothing better than for them to be joyful and to do good as long as they live, to take pleasure in all of his toil, because again, this is God's gift to man. Whatever God does endures forever. And then the ultimate end of that is so that people fear before him. It's just this idea that, like, as we've been talking, it's the same thing, but if we are going through life and there's all this toiling and there really is nothing beyond this life, if God is not sovereign, is really what it boils down to, even in the midst of the little random things that we feel like, does that matter? People that are having the boring days. I remember watching one of the guys talk about that too. But how is God sovereign over the unproductive days even? Like, we've got all these plans and God has changed it. And we don't really know. We could go to the extreme and say, well, maybe he saved you from getting in this car accident, or providing a way for this person to be enabled or whatever. Maybe he's keeping some things and maybe he's engaging other things within his sovereign will. And that's something that we will never actually figure out is really what it boils down to. We won't figure it out. And so God has given us this gift. And I think part of why it's a gift is because these are the things that teach us. And so in the same way that we as parents are wanting to love our children and teach them, and sometimes that means the hard thing. You've got to do this hard work. You have to endure. You have to do this. You have to trust me. All these types of things are us teaching our children, and God is doing the same. And especially that's what I'm seeing in the seasons, time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, or uproot, basically. So it's even more than reaping. It's actually uprooting and gathering stones, casting stones, all that type of stuff is within that.
I don't know how much more we got here. There's like some pieces of the puzzle that are just interesting. He says when one's prosperity increases, those who consume it also increase. Your income matches your outgo. And so we can find various pieces of the puzzle within this that are just interesting.
We always like to quote, like when we were in high school, I think Tiana actually printed it out and put it on her desk, and the supervisors didn't like that, teachers didn't like that, but it was like, with what much wisdom comes much vexation, or or anger,
study.
Increases sorrow. Right. And 118.
It says in 6:9, be content. That's the key. Is want what you have, and you'll have what you want.
7:10. Don't ask why were the old days better than these days.
Yeah.
Or it's not wise to ask that.
Yeah. Well, and it's because it evidences our dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
Well, and I also like the fact that the eye is never done with seeing. Mm-hmm. The ear is never done with hearing. We could go into the mouth, all of our senses, basically. And 6:7, it talks about all the toil of man is for his mouth, yet his appetite is not satisfied. Like all these things, he keeps going back to these same issues. And really, that's what it boils down to. Like there is no end to the amount of entertainment or pleasure or satisfaction that we are seeking. But if God is not part of it, then those things are only going to be temporary, and they're going to leave us wanting to where we've got to go more, we've got to go harder, we've got to go deeper into it or something like that. And so we're just chasing. And that's where the wind comes in, the vapor and grasping at the wind.
I think it is critical that everybody comes to that despondency moment and the emptiness of life's pursuits. That if we never feel that, then we never are motivated to seek a higher calling than just this life. And so I think he's trying to, some of this, it seems like he's all up in his feels, but the reality is he's given us the truth.
Yeah.
That there should be some despondency if all this life is what you're living for. There should be some emptiness, some vapor chasing.
Yep.
Yeah. I also like 7:14. I don't know if that's the one that you just mentioned or not, but in the day of prosperity, be joyful. In the day of adversity, consider God has made one as well as the other. That is a hard lesson for us to learn.
That's tough, yeah.
And again, it comes back to, do we actually trust that God is sovereign? And in his sovereignty, is he good? Is he kind and merciful even in that? And that is the hardest thing for us to learn, is to trust that even in the hard times, God is still good.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to touch on that Sunday too.
Yeah.
But we will probably do some Charlie Kirk moment. Some practical wisdom, chapter 11, just to bring us up a little bit. Diversify your investments. Verse 2. It's like, hey, divide your merchandise among 7, even 8 investments, where you don't know what calamity might happen on earth. I was like, old Solomon, even before the stock market, he had it figured out. Don't wait for weather, or you'll never do anything. I had a window cleaning business, and one of the guys that I employed, actually, he ended up buying the business, but he was like a manager, and so, he was like, I'm not going to do it that day because it's predicted to rain. I was like, Brian, man, come on. It's they predict that about every other day. Let's go get to work and see what happens.
If lightning starts, then, maybe put it away. Right. Maybe don't hold the metal pole up in the air. For man has nothing better under the sun than to eat, drink, and be joyful, for this will go with him in his toil through the days of his life that God has given him under the sun. And again, this is one of those times where I'm like, wait, so which is it, Solomon? He's like, let's go ahead and eat, drink, and be merry. This is part of the toil that God has given us under the sun. And we do know that the things that God has redeemed are so much better, and God has given us this world to enjoy. Like, that's part of it. It's not like he's just put us in this rat race, and so we just have to work, and it's all miserable. Yeah. And eventually, one day we'll get into the reward and we'll be happy. But that he's actually given us a lot of things to enjoy in this life. Yeah. And especially when we understand that this life is glimpses into the next. And when you were talking about the smoke and the vapor, I thought you were going to go to the passage where it says we see though dimly, right? Yeah. And then it'll be clear. Yeah. That's something that I remember holding really close, especially as we were going through stuff with Dominic. But then, as hard times come, then I'm like, man, this is one of those things where we have these things that we see glimpses of, or we have to hang on basically for the time that we will see clearly. That's but right. Things are good, and things can be good here.
What I feel like Ecclesiastes reminds me of the most is Psalm 90, because Moses is writing that, and he's like, God, how much longer must we, toil in this wilderness? And, what is man? The years of man, 70, maybe 80, if he's strong, yeah. So, Lord, without you, we are not satisfied. And so he even prays, satisfy us in the morning with your steadfast love, so that the work of our hands may be established. And so basically what I'm seeing here is that Solomon has tried to basically prove to us, he starts off with everything is futile, everything is vapor. And he proves that everything is by, you will try to find satisfaction in this and you won't find it. You'll try to find satisfaction in that and you won't find it. You'll find satisfaction over here. You may think that you found satisfaction, but when you get there, you'll realize, oh, that's not enough, and you'll want even more. And so that's basically what I feel here is you're constantly longing for something more, and you'll never get there because the true satisfaction is found in Christ and the steadfast love that God has bestowed upon us.
I like it, man. I feel like a closing word. I really think that's it. Until you find it in God, you don't find it at all. Yeah. It's and when you do find it in Him, it just really does put the rest of it in perspective. A normal day for someone who's going to think about it too deeply, overthink it. A normal day is just, ugh. It's and I hate to be that guy, but apart from Jesus, I would be that guy. I'd be like, I don't care. whatever. So we're all die in a minute anyway. That's what it means. You know, and so he even says that, you know, the fool and the wise person, they all die in the end.
Yeah.
Well, and
Same
it is so funny and so ironic that, you know, we've got both sides of the coin in terms of the ones who don't believe in God are going to eat, drink, and be merry. And because whether they're like, man, this is it, I found it, or they know that this is not where it's at, or the people that have and know God then eat, drink, and be merry, but they're two completely different outcomes and joys and satisfactions and everything.
Well, one is occupied, I think, in the pursuit so much so that they haven't figured out that it's empty.
Yeah.
The other is occupied in the gift of God because that is not empty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I like what he says at the end of chapter 11. You know, he's telling a young man, rejoice, young man, while you are young, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Follow the impulses of your heart, but know that God will judge your motives and your actions. And so, you know, he's basically like saying, yes, go after the good things in life, but don't make that
Your God.
Like that's not the point.
Yeah.
But God has given you these gifts.
Yeah, it is a strange dichotomy that we walk knowing that we have things to do in this life that are just temporary, and yet we're pilgrims here, and our focus is on the eternal. So you know, the balance act is whether you eat or drink or whatsoever you do for the glory of God.
Yeah. Fear God, keep his commands.
Yeah. I heard it too. That's like,
Bow with me.
the end.